So, John McCain and Tim Kaine wrote a memo to Congress on Politico, and they said, don't cut foreign aid. So first of all, the duo of John McCain and Tim Kaine seems like a very likely one, because John McCain is not Republican very much at all, and Tim Kaine is just... They have a lot in common. They both have no real personality. They're both very bland. They're both very old school. They're both stuck in the Cold War. They can't get over Russia. So they teamed up to write this little memo. And it's just... Let's get into it. There are some points that are better than others. They do bring up some decent points. But I'm going to go ahead and get into it. Right. So, the memo reads here. It says, the security of the United States and its people is the first priority of government, and imposes numerous responsibilities on Congress and the executive branch. We are responsible for ensuring that our armed services are the best equipped, best trained, and best led military in the world. And we are responsible for assigning them missions that have clear, achievable objectives that are worth their service and sacrifice. It goes on to say, these are dangerous, challenging times. Instability is spreading around the world. Every day brings new reports of armed conflicts, acts of terrorism, humanitarian crises, and historic numbers of refugees and displaced peoples. Development assistance programs support military and diplomatic efforts to address these many crises and help prevent conditions that lead to political instability and radicalization. Right, so this whole thing seems to be about, mostly is about how, we have a moral, it's just like it's a very generic, most of it is a very generic argument of, think of the children, think of our morals and our values, and think of all the poor people, we need humanitarian aid to help them all out. And to that point, I say, look, I mean, I feel bad for the people who live there, for people who have to live in these bad conditions, but at the same time, here in America, we have people who live in bad conditions as well, and isn't it our first responsibility to take care of them, to take care of people in our own country who are having hard times? Isn't that our first responsibility? So we can't, I'm not against foreign aid, but we can't be giving out all this money in humanitarian relief when we can't even keep our own people, stable, and we can't even keep them, fed and cared for. So I don't want to hear any of the emotional arguments of, think of the children, think of all the poor people who live in these countries, think of all the poor people who live here. What about the children here? Think about them. I mean, you're an American senator. Your priority should be the American people and not the Syrian people or the Nicaraguan people or the Filipino people. It's the American people first. It's not we don't it doesn't even matter look, it's not that I don't care about them. Of course I do. And I think that once we sort out the situation here, then we could be giving out, more foreign aid and helping out other countries a little bit more. But we have so many problems here. We have jobs, we have no opportunity. We have no jobs. Everything is no one has healthcare, no one has good houses to live in. There are people who are living in hell, living in poverty, who have no way out because there's no opportunities anymore. All the opportunities are gone. We got to bring the opportunities back. We have so many things to improve here. We need to bring back jobs. We need to bring back opportunity and give people the ability to succeed even if they start from nothing. We need to reform our education system, which is a disaster. Education is such a mess right now. We need to reform so many things. And yet, John McCain and Tim Kaine want you to focus on what's going on in Syria. Look, no offense, Syria, but I do not care at all what's going on in your country. I don't care whatsoever. I'm sorry, it's not my problem. And this whole Middle East thing, all of the Middle East wars are all based on, we gotta help out the people. We gotta help out our people. I don't care if there's a dictator in Afghanistan Do you think I care? I don't care. Oh, there's a dictator in Syria. Do you think I care? Do you think anybody cares? Look, if the people there are so upset, let them overthrow the government. I mean, they are totally capable. Anyone is capable. Anyone's capable of overthrowing their government. If they have a dictator who's like with an unstable regime where they're very unpopular, they can just revolt. Let them handle their own problems over there. We have our own problems over here. You want to talk about political instability? I mean, political stability here. I mean, we're unstable here. I mean, you just had yesterday. We had an act of terrorism on our congressman. So we're like unstable here. We're not. It's not just a thing that's going on overseas. We gotta stabilize ourselves. We gotta stabilize our own economy and our own prospects for our own people before we go out there and focus on foreign people and foreign countries. So the whole emotional thing of, oh, think of the children, think of all the poor people who live there. I don't want to hear any of that, because there are people who are living here in this country who need help, and they need help from our government. Our government should be focused on helping out our people before they help out the people of Syria and all these Middle Eastern countries. Focus on your own people that you're meant to be serving as a member of the government. So anyway, goes on to say in the article, it says here, at the same time, by helping reduce poverty in those societies, we're encouraging economic growth and raising an individual earning power, which can, in turn, open new markets for American goods and services. So this is the point that John McCain brings up, or Tim Kaine, I'm not sure who specifically. This is actually the best point that they make. It's still a little bit flimsy, because we already have, I mean, in terms of exports, we have what we need. I mean, we have countries that would take our exports, but we don't export anything. That's the problem. We don't have manufacturing jobs here anymore. So it's not a problem of, oh, we need new markets. It's a problem of we need to actually manufacture things in the first place. We need to make cars and electronics and clothes. We need to make all these things here instead of, in China. We need to make things here again. We need to bring back manufacturing jobs instead of shipping them overseas. And then if you want to, you can talk about opening up new markets once we actually have things to export. You can say, oh, we need to open up new markets with this foreign aid. That would be valid if we actually had things to export, because right now, as it is, manufacturing jobs are it's just hell. There's nothing. They're all people who used to work manufacturing jobs. They're living in hell. We need to because the jobs are all going overseas. We got to bring them back. We got to bring them back by being smart when it comes to trade and when it comes to the economy and when it comes to restrictions on corporations. We got to bring the jobs back, and then that would, once we actually have things to export, then we can say, okay, time to build up new markets to sell to. We can say that once we actually have things to sell. So that's the best point that they make, but it's still flimsy because we don't have things to export because we need to bring back manufacturing jobs, and we don't have them right now. Anyway, moving on here, right? It says here, half of the world's fastest growing economies are in Africa, where Americans have helped many societies address disease, natural disasters, and poverty. By improving their plight, we improved opportunities for our exports and investments. Again, he's saying the same thing as before. He's saying, well, we need new markets, we need to expand opportunities for our exports. First of all, we don't have anything to export. We don't have, just like I said before, we don't have manufacturing jobs. We need to bring the jobs back. And once we have the jobs back, then we focus on expanding and getting new markets. But until then, we can't use all of our money focusing on this when we could be using it to bring back jobs and stuff and bring back, and reform education and healthcare instead of, foreign aid. So, and he's also saying, I love how he just says that the world's fastest growing economies are in Africa. Why don't we want to be one of the world's fastest growing economies? If the fastest growing economies are in Africa, doesn't that mean that they don't need aid anymore? If they're growing themselves, then don't we need to not? At what point do we say, okay, you guys are fine. All right, you're on your own now. At what point do we say that? When does that point come? If they're the fastest growing economies in the world, then at what point do we say, okay, you've had enough foreign aid. It's time for you to, stand up on your own 2 feet and fend for yourselves a little bit. At what point do we say that? I mean, how long do we have to help these people for? And look, I get it, Africa is not in good shape, but don't you think that it would be a lot better if we had them rely on themselves and we had them work for their own prosperity instead of just giving them all this free stuff and free aid all the time? I mean, just imagine how much better it would be for the entire continent of Africa if we had just minded our own business and let them develop on their own. They would be in a great state. They would be in a good state right now, but they're dependent on our aid right now. So the argument that, oh yeah, we need to help them grow. First of all, we don't have any obligation to. We have no obligation to help them. We need to help ourselves first before we help them. And second, they're doing fine on their own. Apparently they have the world's fastest growing economies. So they don't need help anymore. They don't what do they need help for? So this whole, I don't want to hear that. That argument is also just, it's not like a thing. It's not a real argument. So I don't want to hear that either. But anyway, it says here, in the article, reading here, it says, an unwise budget cuts are ineffective. Desperately needed assistance programs are a penny-wise and pound-foolish error that will shift even more of the burden for stabilizing the world to our overburdened armed services. Here's an idea. Maybe we don't put the burden on anyone, because it's not our responsibility. It's not our job to make sure that African nations have stable economies. It's our job to make sure that our own nation has a stable economy, not theirs. So, if you cut foreign aid, then that doesn't mean that you're putting the burden on the armed services, because there's no burden. You can lift the burden by just saying, look, you guys, we have no obligation to help you guys. We have an obligation to our own people to help them. So why does he say that? Why does he say that it's going to shift the burden to the armed forces when they don't have to do anything? And then he said, such cuts will make it harder to make America safer. What is that supposed to mean? How? It'll make it harder to make America safer. How is America less safe if we give less money to African and Middle Eastern countries? How does it make us less safe? They say that, because it'll make them angry. They don't say that here, but that's what I think they're implying. They're like, if we don't give them foreign aid, then they'll be angry with us. Okay, but here's the thing. Look, just because they're angry with us, what are they gonna do? Go to war? Go to war with us, America? I mean, come on. What is Syria gonna say? They cut off our humanitarian aid. Time to go to war with America, right? That's not gonna happen. No one would do that. So that doesn't make sense. Like, what are they gonna do? Go to war? They're gonna be angry. Okay. Why should we care if they're angry? They'll get over it, trust me. I mean, they're not gonna be sitting around, looking to send nukes because we cut off foreign aid because we have our own problems to deal with before we give them foreign aid. So, and that's what I think he means. He doesn't even describe what he means. He doesn't even say what he means. He just says, it'll make us less safe. I think he means that it's because they'll be angry with us, but that's not a good argument at all. So, so I don't really know what he's trying to say there. And it says here, he finishes here, they will deprive the world of the full array of American political and moral leadership when it has never been more needed. Okay, I don't know what you mean, it has never been more needed. I mean, objectively, the world is in a much better state than it was 100 years ago. That's objective. You can't. That's just a fact. Like there's more peace. There's way less war. I mean, there's still a lot of war, but compared to 100 years ago, forget about it. 100 years ago, you had World War I, so the world is doing a lot better than it was back then. So this idea that they need it more than ever, I don't know what that's supposed to mean. I mean, what are they referring to? They're saying, oh, the Middle East is unstable. It's been unstable for a long time now. And they say, oh, Africa is unstable. That's been unstable for a long time now, too. And they're actually starting to recover Africa. They're starting to do a lot better than they have been. And in the Middle East, like, there is still hope in the Middle East that we can, sort things out with diplomacy. We don't need to be sending them all this foreign aid and all this. We don't need to be doing any military operations there. Forget about that. Forget about military operations. We don't need any military in the Middle East right now. We don't. And he says political and moral leadership. I don't know what that means. It's so vague. Political and moral leadership. Look, we're gonna be the world leader no matter what. Wouldn't it be better if we were the world leader because we had the strongest economy? This is what American leadership started for 2 reasons. One, it was because we won 2 world wars, and 2, it started because we won 2 world wars, but it was maintained because we had the best economy in the world. If we just built up our economy and we brought back jobs and we started to export again, that would maintain our position as the world leader, even without foreign aid and intervention. So this idea that we need to give people money and intervene in foreign affairs because we need to secure our leadership, I mean, sure, that's one way of doing it, but a much better way and a much more sensible and reasonable way would be just to boost our economy. And in the process of doing that, not only do you make us the world leader and maintain our position as the world leader, but you also improve the lives of so many of our people who have been left behind and have been treated like so poorly by the system. So this whole thing is just there's nothing to it. I mean, there's some good arguments, but in general, it's just emotional appeal, and it's just stale. It's just the same thing that they've been saying over and over again, like, oh, think of the children. So everything about this is just so wrong, and the fact that it was written by John McCain should be really telling before you even get into it. But yeah, other than that, we need to focus on our own country before we go and deal with all this foreign aid and all this foreign intervention, and that's about it.